Hi again, thanks very much for joining me for another edition of 15 Minutes with Father Greg, where I get to answer all the questions that have been sent in over the last few weeks. And I am so grateful for the many questions we've received. If you haven't sent a question in, please feel free to do so. There's a link right below where you can fill out a simple Google Doc and you can put your name to it or ask anonymously any question you have about our Catholic faith, about things that we do or believe, and I'd be happy to get to them as soon as I can. And I apologize, I haven't gotten to all the questions yet. I've been trying to answer them kind of in groups, and I'll do so again right now. So if I haven't gotten to your question, please be patient. I promise I will as soon as I can. Also, if you're watching on YouTube right now, please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. It's really important for us. And if you're watching on another platform, on our Instagram account or on our website or whatever it might be, if you wouldn't mind going over to our YouTube channel for St. Gerard Majella Parish, and subscribe to that channel. It really helps us a great deal because we're able to do more once we have more subscribers. Certain things like live streaming and all on YouTube requires so many subscribers, so that really does help us out. So again, please be sure to like and subscribe to our social media, especially to our YouTube channel. And if you like these videos, please share them with family and friends. We've gotten some great responses from all over the country, and that's thanks to you and your generosity of spirit in sharing the good news, and I'm happy to be part of that in a small way as well. So I want to get to our questions for this week, and there were a number of questions that had to do with priesthood, my own story of priesthood, or what it takes to become a priest, and how does the church choose who's going to be a priest or a bishop or even a cardinal. So I just thought I'd put those all together and describe a little bit about what goes into discerning, that is, deciding to become a priest, and what's the process by which someone does become a priest. So the first is, how do you know, or how do you decide to become a priest? Well, the fancy word for deciding with God is called discernment. So to discern something means to decide being mindful of our relationship with God. So the first thing we need to do is to be praying. So young guys out there listening to me right now, maybe the Lord is calling you to be a priest. Moms and dads, maybe the Lord is calling one of your sons to be a priest. Grandmas and grandpas, same for your grandsons. Maybe there are teachers who recognize it in some of their students. What does it take to be a priest? Well, first it takes an open heart. I often describe the process of discerning, deciding to become a priest, very similar, I suspect, to the way a man and a woman fall in love and eventually decide to be married. That is, it takes conversation, it takes getting to know each other, and it takes honesty about ourselves, about our past, and about our goals and hopes and aspirations for the future. So one of the things I recommend for guys who are maybe possibly remotely thinking about priesthood is talk to people that you trust. Talk to people that love you, because they're going to have your best interests in mind. They also know you well, so they know what brings you joy and happiness, and all that comes together to help us in our own discernment, whatever our vocation in life might be, whether it is to the priesthood or to the religious life or to marriage. It's important for us to talk to people who know us, who love us, to get their perspective and to help reflect what it is we're feeling and thinking as well. The other thing too is, in any walk of life, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or you want to be a mechanic, or you want to be whatever, you want to talk to people who are in those fields. You know, what is it like in your daily experience of your occupation? So if you're thinking about being a priest, talk to priests. Talk to your parish priest. If you're at a high school maybe run by a religious community, talk to the religious who run that school. Or if you're in college, talk to campus ministers, to chaplains, to those who are involved in the religious life of that community. Getting to know priests on a personal level really does help. And I know for me that was a really big part of my own vocation. My parish priests were family friends. As I went through high school and college, I got to know a lot more priests. And in doing so, it actually made me want all the more to become a priest. So talk to priests, talk to people that you know, and ultimately talk to God. That is the stuff of prayer. Having that ongoing conversation with God. Because the thing with God is, He's not out to trick us. He doesn't just bury a treasure for us and give us a few clues and say, hope you figure it out. No, He's with us every step of the way. No matter what our vocation is, He wants us to be happy, to be joyful, and to be vessels of his love. And for some of us, for some guys out there, we're called to the tremendous gift of being priests for and with the church, for and with the people of God. So, what are the steps that it takes to become a priest? Well, many guys discern during high school and college. I certainly did. Other guys might discern later in life. I have a number of friends and even classmates who had whole other careers before they entered the process of becoming a priest. So no matter where you are in life, it will maybe change a little bit of your formation or the process by which you become a priest. But it really begins with speaking to the diocesan vocation director. Every diocese, every religious community has a person who's designated as the vocation director. That is the person who you might think of as the recruiter, the one who speaks to prospective applicants, helps to answer questions, and offer some guidance through the entire process. So my vocation director growing up, especially through high school and college, was extraordinary and a great resource and blessing to me as I discerned and prayed and thought about becoming a priest. So, depending on what your education experience has been beforehand, priests are required to have a high school and college education. And depending on where you begin this process of discernment, you may, during the course of college, study philosophy. Because to become a priest, you have to take a lot of philosophy and a lot of theology. Pretty much a bachelor's degree, an undergrad degree in philosophy, and then a number of years of graduate theological studies. So the place where you go to become a priest is called a seminary. Let me say that again. Seminary, not cemetery. That's something very different. A seminary is a place where a man goes to study to become a priest. The very word seminary comes from a Latin phrase which means a seed bed. That is, where seeds are planted to grow. And that's precisely what all schooling is about, is us growing and maturing and becoming better versions of ourselves to become the people God has made us to be. And so seminary is a place where we men grow into priests. We grow closer to Christ, hopefully, and we want to become better images and reflections of him in the world. So there are two types of seminary. There's what's called minor seminary and major seminary. In minor seminary, it's more introductory, and that's also the time where we study a lot of philosophy. So you'll do, 30 plus credits at least of philosophical training. And then you can enter what's called major seminary. In major seminary, we do a lot of theology. There are really four pillars, you might say, of priestly formation. There's human, academic, spiritual, and pastoral. So first, human. We want to make sure that we're good people, that our humanity, what makes us tick, is attractive to other people, that attracts people to Christ, so that we're, to put it simply, normal and fun and joyful. So that's human formation. Second is, of course, academic. We take a lot of classes to become priests. It's a lot of years of study and training. We also have what's called pastoral formation. That is, learning how to do the stuff of priesthood, how to celebrate the sacraments, how to counsel people, how to journey with them through difficult moments. And of course, all of this is undergirded by our spiritual formation, learning the stuff of prayer and a spiritual life, learning not just devotions, but how to cultivate that deep personal relationship with Christ, how to be a person of prayer. So that's a little bit about the schooling that we go through to become priests. There's an application process, of course. There are reference letters and all the rest of it that would go into really almost any graduate program. So some have asked, well, what does it take to become a deacon? It's actually kind of similar. Not exactly, but parallel. Men who are discerning the diaconate are typically in their 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even into their 60s when they're discerning a vocation to the diaconate. Many of them are married or perhaps were married at one point. And they, like guys thinking about priesthood, will speak to the person in the diocese entrusted with that really important work. I was really blessed for 3 years to be the director of deacon formation for our diocese here in Rockville Center. And so I helped men journey through that discernment process and then begin their studies. And the studies of a deacon are very similar to the studies of priesthood, although for us as seminarians becoming priests, we go to a school designated just for that, Whereas men who have families, who have wives and children and careers, they'll often do weekly or bi-monthly periods of study depending on the diocese. So they'll also go through a period of years, usually 4 to 6 years depending, of studies before they're ordained deacons. Some ask, how are some priests called to be bishops? Well, the short answer is it's up to the Pope. Now, certainly there's only one Pope and there are over 1 billion Catholics throughout the world. So the Pope has a lot of help in his daily work. And he has a specific congregation. It's kind of like our cabinet system here in America. He has one specific office that is entrusted with helping him to select priests to become bishops of dioceses throughout the world. How that process unfolds is not so complicated, but it does involve a lot of steps. There's the Pope's representative in each country called a nuncio, or an ambassador, and part of his job is to help advise the Pope and the congregation in Rome as to who might be suitable candidates to become a bishop. They submit those suggestions, there are files prepared, and then ultimately a list is put in front of the Pope, and he takes a look at it, and he might accept the first recommendation or the second or the third, or he might say, you know what, bring me someone else. And after a period of time, months, in some cases even years, the Pope will make a decision and then announce that there's a new bishop for a particular diocese or an auxiliary bishop for a diocese, that is, a bishop who assists another bishop in guiding and governing a particular diocese. And some also asked, how do you become a cardinal? Well, church law is pretty clear on this. Cardinals are men who have been ordained priests who are then selected by the Pope to enter this specific group called the College of Cardinals. The cardinals have two major functions. The first is they help the Pope guide and govern the church on a daily basis. So they're his closest collaborators. They're the ones who advise him on a nearly daily basis on all the different parts and facets of the church. Everything from evangelization to social justice to governance and so many other areas. The cardinals are the chief collaborators of the Pope. And also, when a Pope dies, or as we've seen a bit more recently with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, when a Pope resigns, the cardinals are called together in what's called a conclave. And they are entrusted, under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, to select from among themselves one who would become the next Pope. It's one of the most sacred and solemn duties anyone could have. And so we pray for the College of Cardinals when they enter into that period called conclave. And then some finally ask, what about Monsignors? I haven't heard a lot about Monsignors lately. Well, that's because a number of years ago, actually not too long after Pope Francis was elected, he decided to cut back on the number of priests who would be named a Monsignor. And for those who don't know, a Monsignor is simply an honorary title that a bishop can ask the Pope to give a particular priest. Maybe this priest has been really instrumental in the life of the diocese, is someone who is admired and trusted. Like a really great priest might be named a Monsignor. But Pope Francis wanted us to, for us priests that is, to never be attracted to honors and titles and all those, the catchings that might, and the trappings that might hold our attention. He said, no, we're all brothers in Christ, and so we should be focused on our mission. And so he reserved the title of Monsignor to be given only to more senior priests. So that's why you don't see too many Monsignors being named these days. One final question in just a couple of minutes. Someone asked me, Father Greg, what's a typical day look like for you as a priest? Well, the past few months have not been typical at all. So I really won't describe those because they've just been really strange. But a typical day for me is really full and really life-giving. I try to get up kind of early or relatively early, maybe 5:45, 6 o'clock the latest. I like to get up, of course, let Leo out, get that first cup of much-needed coffee, and then I head off to the chapel for a period of prayer. Then I try to get over to our nearby gym and get a good workout in for about an hour or so. Come back, clean up, and get ready for the day. Of course, give Leo his breakfast and then head over to the parish office. Once I'm here, one of the first things I'll do is, of course, the most important thing I do as a priest, and that is to celebrate Mass. And so we normally have Mass here at 9 o'clock in our parish chapel. After that, It really depends. That's when everything can happen or not. Up until about 10 o'clock in the morning is the only time I really can kind of predict. After that, it could be meetings. It's a lot of work here in my office. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of planning and meeting and collaborating with our awesome staff here, whether it's about religious education or working with couples who are preparing their children for baptism, whether it's our outreach program or a thrift shop or barn or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of office work that has to be accomplished. And then by the mid-afternoon, I try to start making my visits to those who are in nursing homes, those who are homebound, and then hopefully try to get over to our religious education classes when we're able to have them in person over at our school at Boyle Road. And then in the evenings, they could be filled with meetings as well, whether it's with couples who want to get married, whether it's counseling sessions with people who are in some sort of need, or meeting with our 7th and 8th grade students who are here for confirmation prep. So evenings can get filled up really fast. And the whole day is peppered with prayer, and then usually ends over in the house in our private chapel for some time of prayer before resting, getting some good sleep, and starting all over again. So that's a little glimpse of my life on a daily basis. And what I love about being a priest is every day is different. And yes, there are some staple parts of it, but every day is exciting and new, sometimes quite challenging, but overall extremely joyful and life-giving. So again, if you're a young guy watching this video, think about priesthood. If you know a young man who you think has what it takes to be a priest, say something. Encourage him. Encourage him to pray about it, to talk to others about it. And hey, if I can help, please give him my name and number. I'd be happy to speak to him as well. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of 15 Minutes with Father Greg. Please, again, submit your questions via the link below, and like and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Thanks so much. Know my prayers for you. Please keep me in yours. God bless.